This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the Take-Two CEO's comments on PlayStation's all-digital future, Persona 1 and 2 possibly getting remakes, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 149. I am your host, the man who's getting paid to put out new episodes of the podcast on Netflix 6 hours ahead of their YouTube and Rumble releases, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who will now display a warning about the PS5 digital-only future on his forehead, Justin, better known as I Am Zeracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not too bad. One thing I actually made a note of for this week, which I forgot to mention last week, is because of when my niece and nephew were here before and we were trying to play together, because of some of the hassles I had with trying to get the controller set up and whatnot, I decided, you know what, I should just go ahead and get another Steam controller since it'll be easier, especially if, I mean, it's not a big deal with the Xbox controller, or rather the DigiPro I have that's already set up. But if one of them is using the DualSense, the other one's not using it, then it's a bit hard trying to tell them, all right, press this button. And I'm thinking one layout when they have a different layout. So I went ahead and put her in a reservation. It's not gonna be available until 2027, maybe April or May possibly, but it's like, all right, at least I have a reservation so that when it is available, I'll be able to get another one. I wanted to get one at some point anyway, so that's in for that. Saturday, I just had a rest day because work has been very it's been a very long week, so I was like, I'm just gonna have Saturday just be a nice resting day, so that was good. Sunday, I caught up with an old buddy. I've been meaning to message him and stuff just to see how he's doing. He actually happened to text me, so I was like, hey, how's it going? And so just seeing what's new with him. Some stuff's going on with him that I'm hoping it'll be better. I would like to meet him in person sometime, but I know with him, with a new job, it might not be as possible as it was before, but I'd like to do that at some point. But yeah, it was good talking to him when we had the moment. And then yesterday we had a storm pass through. Initially, it was just going to be like a thunderstorm, but then probably about 30 minutes after getting a thunderstorm warning, we got a tornado warning. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I was working from home that day, so it's not like I had to commute back home or anything like that. But the one problem I had was just like, fortunately nothing had happened. I was a bit nervous though because the power went out one time, and so that was kind of throwing a wrench into my workflow since I'm communicating with other people. But it wasn't off long. In fact, it's more so just like a flicker, but the Wi-Fi just took a while before it kicked back in. But yeah, so definitely glad that nothing happened there. But that's everything that's happened this week.
Try to think of whether or not I had any comments on that, and I don't think I did. On my end, really, Saturday ended up being actually exactly the opposite for me. It was a busy day, although I didn't spend the whole day working on stuff, but basically, I got up earlier than I planned to, and then I was just basically nonstop doing stuff for the first 6 hours of my day until I finally took a break around noon, and then from there I just rested for the rest of the day. But yeah, I mean, it was doing some cooking, doing yard work. Biggest thing was that I have been putting off most of the summer doing the edge trimming, so getting out the weed whacker and cutting the grass around the edges where the mower can't quite get. And I mean, that used to be something I would do, every 3 to 4 weeks, but I hadn't done this whole summer because the annoying thing with my weed whacker is that um, it's a little bit more of a pain to put new line in whenever the like if the line gets cut to the point where it's no longer coming out. And I mean, like, I have enough experience to where I know, how to keep it coming out normally, but when it messes up, then I have to turn it off, flip it over, unscrew it, re-spool sometimes, and then try to get it going until it inevitably does it again. So it's just annoying, and so I hadn't done it pretty much the whole summer, and I finally did that in mowing, but I foolishly forgot to take allergy medicine before I started doing it, and so my grass allergies were just miserable for the rest of the day and overnight, and I had issues with being overly congested and sneezing and runny nose and all sorts of stuff, and so it was just like I did not sleep very well. But it is what it is. I mean, I wasn't doing music on Sunday or anything, so it wasn't a huge deal. I mean, obviously, still went to church, and thankfully everything was working fine with the computer, so no issues on that end. And yeah, but otherwise it's been pretty standard stuff, just work and whatnot. Next week we have the new CEO of our company coming out to do a town hall, and in which they'll tell us that PlayStation's no longer putting their games on PC. But in all seriousness, so because that's next Monday, and I think he and a bunch of other people from out of town are going to be in the office Monday, Tuesday. I have to make sure I'm there because I'm the only IT person in office now. And so it's like I normally work at the office Wednesday, Thursday. Next week I had to do Monday, Tuesday, which is different. I mean, on the plus side, I get my days in the office out of the way, but I have a feeling I'm probably not going to be doing a whole lot of my normal job because I'll probably be doing lots of helping people with stuff. I mean, I already got all the like monitors and cables and mice and keyboards and everything set up, apart from the stuff that we had to have shipped to us from the corporate office. But yeah, it was just kind of it was already busy beforehand because of that, and now that I expect those 2 days are going to be spending more time away from my desk than at my desk. But on the plus side, my days should go by faster, so that's good.
Well, I definitely hope that things go smoothly during those days, and that there aren't any technical issues that need you to be, especially since you're only one in the office, that multiple people need you at the same time.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm like probably most, I guess you could say, worried about is the guy that we had in the office doing IT before, who was there for like 6 years. He knew about all the intricacies of just the various stuff in office because he was there both before and after COVID. And because he was in office more frequently than I was, he and then other times would have other people to support him, but he knew how to do all the different things, including some of the stuff related to like the HVAC system. But in my case, like, I've never done anything with that until recently. And when he trained me on the stuff that he does in the office, that part of the HVAC system, particularly modifying the temperature for one room where it doesn't work, like you can't just manually do it at the thermostat, you had to do it through a server application. He didn't go over that. And so it's been trying to figure it out because the room's been overly cold because the AC's just been running way more often than it should be. And I mean, I think we've got it figured out because there's someone else who works in the office that had previously done stuff with it, but she transferred over to accounting. And so I showed her the application again today to try to refresh her memory, and she told me what she normally did. So hopefully we got it fixed, but if not, it's like, well, I mean, I'm doing the best I can, but unfortunately, this is one piece of information that wasn't passed on. He covered everything else about the HVAC system, but I didn't realize that there was going to be that issue with this one particular room which is the big meeting room that we have, the training room. So it is what it is. But as long as that can get worked, the rest of the stuff, most of it I should be able to handle without too much trouble. And a lot of the stuff can still be handled by like the service desk team remotely. They don't necessarily need me to be there, but because of the fact that I'll be there, most likely I'm going to be the one who handles a lot of that stuff. So it's like, okay, I'll be acting as a service desk member for a couple of days and not do my normal job. At least not as much. So, anyway. That all being said, what have you been playing this week?
All right, so I've been playing a couple new things in addition to something we probably already know I've been playing. So first game I've been playing was a game called Repo. That's something that I played with my friends, and this is a co-op game, sort of a, I guess you could say, a horror heist type of game, where you're trying to just collect money in a post-apocalyptic world to pay off your debts. And so each level you go into a certain place. It's always random, but you go into a location trying to find anything of value and just collect it and try to use that to pay off your debts. And in the meantime, there's at least one monster that's going to appear that is going to try to kill you. And it's always random what monster it is as well. So we've been playing that. We played that for a good while, and it's a bit finicky with the controls sometimes because it's sort of one of those physics-based games. So it's
okay.
Yeah. So it's got a little bit of that jank to it. Played that for a while, and then my friend, he also had a modded version of the game where he was able to have certain other levels and also unlock other weapons that you normally have to wait a while before you can actually purchase them. So we played that one time, but we really failed that level, so we got kicked back to the beginning from scratch. So yeah, we played that for a while. Not bad. It's something I could see doing with him, but I don't think it's something that I would, personally say I would, go and play with, play. But yeah, we did that. And then I also played Gwent, the card game that is from the Witcher games, and that's something he also wanted to play with me, and I said all right. But the one thing I would say is the game has a very long tutorial before you can even actually get to choosing how you play, because you initially go through several kind of gameplay tutorials, and then you have to play against 3 online matches before you can sort of select how you want to play or do anything else, basically. So I got tired by the time I finished the first online match, and I didn't even know I was going to be playing an online match too. So I call it wraps there. And the game itself, it's not complicated. I mean, I'm kind of used to other types of card games like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I mean, like, I can understand how the game works. I understand it more now than when I was initially played it in Witcher 3. Because when I played it then, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and yet somehow I won. Here, I have a better understanding, although I'm still not entirely certain when turns end. Because twice when I thought the turn was going to end, it either ended earlier or ended later. Which kind of screwed things with my plans, because I said, all right, I will end the turn early, and that way I should be able to at least win the round. But then the other player had another turn. I was like, whoa, wait a second, what happened here? Or I said, all right, I will go on my next turn, I'll do something and I'll win this round. And then the round ended a turn earlier, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I really do not understand how this works at all. So like the idea, the principles behind the game, I get, but I just don't understand how many turns you get in each round. That's really the biggest thing that's been an issue. Similar with Repo, it's something I think I will play with my friend, but would I personally want to do it myself? Not necessarily, especially in this case with Gwent. It's a fully online game, and I know that people probably put way more hours into this than I would care to, and so I would just get mopped if I did that. So I'll do it with I'll play games with him, and that's also if I ever finish the tutorial. But other than that, I probably wouldn't play this unless I was also playing, say, Witcher 3, and I wanted to get like achievements or something like that. But yeah. And then, much to no one's surprise, I've been playing more Power World, and I've made some more progress in the story. I've made it up to the 5th boss tower. I just came shy, and I made certain this time to make sure I do all the main quest stuff before going to the boss tower. So I did do that, and I am supposed to actually now go into the tower. But I just thought before that point, I've also started to build the forges I need to get the higher quality metals and plastics that I need to make better armor. So that's definitely good on that end. Additionally, I decided to try my luck at one of the summon raid battles, and that's sort of the clip you're seeing here. And the thing with the raid battles is you have to have a summoning you have to build this summoning table at your base, and when you do that, that will summon the boss fight. And I knew previously in the early access version, if you did a raid battle, the boss will appear at your base. So whatever damage happens will be dealt to your base. So I said, I am going to set up another base that's not my main base and do the battle there. So that way, anything that happens won't affect anything. But then when I went to actually summon the boss, I had an option of either fighting at my base or at an offshore raid arena. And I said, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why, but sure. So I decided to I opted to do the arena just because I was like, sure, it's not happening right here, but I'd rather just not do it at a base, even if this one's just a throwaway base. So I did the boss battle there, and I also thought to myself, because this boss's level is 35 and mine is roughly, I think at the time was maybe 55, 56, I said, this will be easy peasy. I faced bosses with around the same level before and came out triumphant easily. I nearly spent my entire time on this boss, the whole 10 minutes. And I was also nervous because the boss does hit hard, and either I'm not dealing enough damage, or I'm probably doing moderately enough damage, but the boss also just has a huge health of pull. And I am really hoping that this boss isn't like a nerfed version, because if this boss had been nerfed in the 1.0 version, I shudder to think what it would have been like in the early access version, if that's the case. But yeah, I got through the boss fight, and I was very nervous too, because near the end of the fight, of course, I was going to try to capture it, but I kept throwing spheres at it, and I kept getting a message saying, you cannot use the sphere on the boss. I said, all right, let me use a higher level sphere. I tried that. This sphere does not work, and I kept getting 0% chances, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I'm having less than 2 minutes on the clock. I'm saying, all right, either I have to kill the boss or capture it, and I'm just like, I am running out of time here. And then probably once I started getting down within, say, maybe it was around 30 seconds, I said, I'm sorry, I just have to put you down and try again at some other point, because I wasn't gonna fail the boss fight. However, after the boss fight, I didn't realize what I had picked up from the boss fight, and then one of the items that I received was an egg, and I thought, well, I had also been searching for eggs, so I said, this is just an egg, I'll go and hatch it. The boss actually drops an egg that allows you to hatch the boss, so nice. I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So I don't know if that will happen with all the raid summons or not, but at least with this one, that it definitely was the case where you don't actually need to capture the boss. It'll just drop an egg and you can go about your business. Although granted, I also don't know if that's the case if you do the arena fight or if you actually fight it at your base. So I might have to test and see, or look up online, see what happens there. But one also key takeaway I learned was I will not be ready for that whale boss fight. This is what I'm getting right now. I do not. I definitely will not be ready for that boss fight later on. But this was definitely good. But then the one last thing I also learned is that, or the one tragedy is that, right after I was done with the boss and I came back to that base, the base was being raided. And I was like, all right, that's cool, no big deal. I've been dealing with raids, and there have been no issues. The problem I learned is, which I also looked up on later on, is that the base raids scale with the average level of the pals in your base. The pals in my base, there were none because it was just throwaway base, so it was all based on what I had in my party, and that was roughly around level 50. And so because of that, all the enemies that attacked me were level 50, and sure, maybe one or two I could have taken on, but when you're getting hit by 8 of them, that's a big problem. So I got wiped out, and I had to come back, try to get my stuff, but I'm still getting raided for the next 8 minutes.
Oh man.
So it was a major pain trying to just survive that entire ordeal without dying multiple times. But yeah, so I think in that instance, it probably would have been better to just bribe the guy and say, hey, leave me alone, or just leave the base alone, because it's not like I had anything that they were going to take anyway, or damage. So yeah, it was a good learning opportunity. But yeah, that is everything that I have done with that game and everything I've played this week.
Nice. All right. So first of all, I gotta say, the more I watch of your gameplay in Power World, the more I'm like, I really need to play this game one of these days, because it just it's like when you compare what you do with this versus, you know, Pokemon, where it's just so much more basic, so much more simple. There's just seems to be so much more complexity to it. And I mean, I realize that the Pokemon games do have a level of complexity in terms of your build crafting and everything for your Pokemon. You know, especially compared to what it was back in Gen 1, which is personally where I thought it was the best, just because it was simple and good. And of course, you know, realized that Pokemon was my first RPG, certainly made a difference for me. But that all being said, I really do think Power World is looking really good, and it's definitely one of those that I may end up just grabbing, like, when it's on a good discount. I mean, not anytime soon, because I'm not really... I wouldn't play it right now, even if I had it, most likely, since I'm, you know, in the middle of other games. But definitely one that I'm a lot more interested in now than I was before. So, now then, in terms of Gwent, so you said it's online only?
Essentially online only, from what I've played so far, because I mean, maybe you can play against the CPU, but from what I've experienced, I mean, granted, you probably can play against the CPU because the tutorial just takes you through a CPU battle. So I would believe so, but just like as soon as you get out of the basic tutorial, it immediately just throws you into online without any options of doing offline battles or anything like that. But I'd have to check again, or check after I finally finish the tutorial, because like I said, you have to go through 3 online battles before you can do anything else.
Gotcha. Yeah, because the interesting thing about Gwent is I was actually, I mean, like, I have that one in my Steam library, or not my GOG library, and I can't even remember, like, I don't remember if I bought it when it was just super cheap or if I got it for free, but it was one that literally, like, I think maybe a couple days ago, I was thinking, you know, I kind of want to give that game a shot, because I never played The Witcher. I never played anything past a little bit of the first Witcher game. I mean, I have the first 2 games, and I'm not planning to play them, because all this stuff with what's his face, main character. I'm blanking on his name. Geralt. Thank you. With the whole thing with him, you know, sleeping with women, and I mean, with random women and everything. It's one of those where, yes, it's completely possible to avoid it, but because I know myself well enough, I just know that I'll be tempted to get into that stuff, and because of the fact that they have all the sex scenes and nudity and everything, I'm just like, I just need to stay away from that. So, I mean, if I had the opportunity way back when I bought the games, I would have refunded those. Now they're just sitting in my library, and I'm probably never going to play them because of that stuff that's in there. I mean, the first game doesn't have it to the same extent, but the second game I know does, and the third game does, and I'm like, I can't even play that at all. But I've always heard that Gwent was really fun. Like, guy I've talked about previously, Gabe Patillo, who passed away a couple years ago, who was one of the main guys for Marriage to the Games. Back when he played The Witcher 3, he never got past Skellige because he got so addicted to Gwent. And so I've always been curious about that, but I didn't want to play The Witcher 3 because of just that particular content, even though I'm sure I would like the rest of the game. Because I played like 6 hours of the first game. And even though the first game I know has very different combat, because it's very just a PC game, because it's like mouse-based and everything, mouse and keyboard. And I know that I would really enjoy the rest of the gameplay, but I just can't put myself in a position where I'm playing games that have that kind of content in them. And so I just won't. But Gwent was something I was interested in. But if it really is like only PvP kind of online card battles, I probably won't play it because like I'll happily play single player card battling games, especially if it has any similarity whatsoever to Magic the Gathering, or Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, I know it's definitely not like Yu-Gi-Oh, but more, I mean, it seems like it gives me more Magic vibes than Yu-Gi-Oh, and I love Magic, at least the older rule set. I don't know if the rules are still the same as they were 20 some odd years ago, but anyway, so yeah, it was interesting seeing that you were playing that this week. But yeah, that was really...
If I play more of it, I'll let you know if you do actually get to play with the CPU.
Sounds good. Because, like, the ideal, in my opinion, would be having just a purely single-player version where it's not just, like, random card battles against CPU, but, like, it maybe has a quote-unquote story mode. That would be ideal, because then it's like, okay, I could, get my fix playing, like, a card-type game, but not have to worry about going against other people online and getting my butt kicked all the time because I'm not that good. But yeah. All right, good stuff. All right, well, my games list this week, it's relatively short, but there are a couple things I want to mention first. First of all, I do want to mention I don't have them on my desk. I forgot to pull them off the shelf beforehand. But I got 2 more physical Switch games in the mail today. One of which I had forgotten about until the pre-order. I got a notification of the pre-order shipping like last week or something, and I had ordered it months ago. And then the other one was one that Limited Run recently restocked that I was interested in. So the one that I got from Super Rare Games, which is the one I pre-ordered a while ago, is a game called Bloodshed. And it is a first-person boomer shooter, roguelite type shooter. So it's like Survivors-esque, like Vampire Survivor kind of thing, except that you have different roles. You have like one character that has a gun, one character that has like a sawed-off shotgun, and you get different types of weapons with that, and there's like a sorceress and stuff like that. But it looked really interesting to me when I saw it on their list, and so I went ahead and had pre-ordered it, and I got that today. And the other one that I got was the Gex trilogy. I've never played those games before, but I've always been interested, and so it's like Limited Run had those pop up. I was interested. So I haven't touched the Gex one, but I did decide to try out Bloodshed. And so I tried that one on the Switch, and then I tried it on the Switch too, just to see if the performance was any better. I don't know how much different it was from that standpoint, but it was definitely more stable, if nothing else. It's very like old school kind of 3D graphics, which I like a lot. but like it very much feels kind of like a almost kind of like Doom, except not quite the same. I mean, it's hard to explain exactly, but when you see the gameplay, you'll know what I'm talking about. But in trying out a bit, I only played like the first 2 levels, the second of which is really frustrating. You had to survive for 20 minutes. I got to 18 minutes and 43 seconds, and then I died.
Oh.
It's like, dang it. It was so close. But let me back up ever so slightly. So, of course, I got the Switch version, played it a bit on Switch too. And I'll talk more about like the performance and visuals and all that here in a second, because I also was curious, okay, I wonder if this is on sale for Steam or anything, because it is available on Steam. And I found it on Instant Gaming for like $3. So I went ahead and got it on Steam as well. And I decided, okay, first I'll try it on the Steam Deck, see how it plays there. It actually runs better on the Switch than it does on the Steam Deck. And I think it's primarily because of the fact that the Switch version has some like visual settings turned down slightly. And not to where like it looks bad by any stretch, but it like when you see them side by side, which the gameplay that's shown right now is side by side, the Switch version docked and the PC playing on my laptop. But the Steam Deck looks a bit better, at least when you're running it at native resolution or at 720p. But the frame rate is like I'm getting in the 40s, which to me just isn't good enough. And I tried lowering the resolution a little bit, and even when I put it down to like, I want to say I put it down to like 1156 by 720 or something like that. I may have even gotten lower than that. Eventually got it into like the 50s, which felt a lot better than it did before, but still like that's just not good enough. And so, of course, the Steam survey popped up after I closed the game. This is verified. And I said, nope, it's not verified. This is, the frame rate is just not good enough. And, like for a game that's supposed to be fast paced like this, it needs to be 60 FPS. And it wasn't. Now, like I said, the gameplay that's showing here side by side is Switch 1 footage, or the Switch 1 version on the left-hand side, playing on a Switch 2 docked. And then on the right side is playing on my laptop with mouse and keyboard. And on the laptop, I'm getting over 100 FPS, 100 to 120 at 1440p native. And it has 120 FPS cap is what I put it at, because I didn't see any point in going above that. Especially since I have had times in the past where it hasn't detected that my monitor's 240 hertz. So I just decided, whatever. And I mean, ultimately it didn't matter because it didn't go above 100 FPS. But then the Switch version seems to be pretty much, I mean, I could be wrong on this, but it seems like it's a locked 60. Or very, very close to a locked 60. Like, it runs very well. It doesn't look as good. The environments are definitely a lot more detailed on the Steam version, both on the Steam Deck and on my laptop. But the problem is that the Steam version doesn't have graphical options. Basically, it has some visual options, like you can turn off film grain and chromatic aberration, or not chromatic aberration. There's a couple of like visual type settings that you can turn on or off, and you can change the field of view, but there's basically no visual settings, no graphical settings whatsoever. So there was no way for me to make the game run better on the Steam Deck apart from simply trying to run it at a lower resolution, and so it just wasn't worth it. But anyway, all that being said, the game is pretty fun. I've only really I played. So you only have one character available who has a Desert Eagle as his primary weapon. He has a Desert Eagle and then a machete. And as you go through the level, you can unlock other weapons like shotguns and Uzis and dual pistols and eventually like a frying pan. I can't remember if there's been anything else that I've come across yet so far. And then the other character that I was able to unlock starts off with a sawed-off shotgun and an electrified pitchfork. And between the two, I like the first character better so far, but I only played really as the first character for the most part, and all the footage that's playing here is just the first character with the Desert Eagle. So, but yeah, just like with like Vampire Survivors and that sort of thing, as you gain, pick up experience bubbles, then you eventually get to a point that it lets you pick a random perk to add on, strengthen your weapons, increase your defense, increase your damage, etc. So, but yeah, I mean, I like it. It's a fun game. The one thing I really think I wish it did differently, for at least when you're playing with a controller, is having some sort of aim assist, because I feel like it doesn't really have any sort of aim assist, and so it's aiming is just very loosey-goosey and not really. I mean, like it's doable, of course, but it was significantly better playing with a mouse than playing with a controller. So, and I tried doing gyro on the Steam Deck, and when I was moving around that fast, it didn't really help all that much. But I think the thing that is the most interesting to me about the performance is that, I mean, like I like the art style this game goes for and everything. And I mean, it performs well enough, but what I don't like about it is that you have games like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal that are significantly visually more impressive than this one. And I mean, obviously this is going for a very different art style, but those ones run better than this game on the Steam Deck and look better. And even though I really love the art style on this, and I mean, that's a big part of what drew me to it in the first place, was just the combination boomer shooter with that particular art style it has. I just feel like, this could have used a little more time in the oven. I mean, it is fun, and for the type of game it is, it works. But it seems like it could use more optimization. But on the plus side, I am actually really happy that it runs as well as it does on the Switch, because then it doesn't feel like it's a waste to have it on there. And I could actually see myself being like, if I wanted to just mindlessly play this kind of game, if I wanted to play it portably, I would play it on the Switch. And yes, there's no cross progression, but I mean, it's just kind of a, I mean, you know from playing these types of games that it's the kind of game that's really easy to just play and shoot stuff for a while, and see how you can do on a level and what kind of perks you pick up and all that stuff. And of course, there are some permanent upgrades as well that you can purchase, which I haven't done any of those yet. The only thing I purchased so far was just the second character. But yeah, still, it's a pretty cool game. I like what I played, and I'm not really planning to like play this much right now. It was more just the fact that I got it and I wanted to test it out. So that's exactly what I did. I did play a little more Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. I really didn't play very much, though. I basically just played, like, I want to say maybe a couple hours last Wednesday, and that was the extent of it. And that's because of the fact that I spent basically most of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, obviously in my off time, playing Salt and Sacrifice, and I finished it. So the footage that's playing here right now, for starters, it's the last area of the game, and there's two instances of this particular boss showing up, but this is the boss that you face in the prologue, like the opening thing, that you basically are not expected to win, of course. But when you go to this final area, he shows up in 2 separate areas, and only once. Obviously, once you kill him, he's gone, and it doesn't close off the arena, which is kind of nice. But so the particular like instance in the instance that I'm fighting him here, he's actually I like guide him off towards near one of the save things, so that I can easily restock my arrows and replenish my potions and stuff in between, doing damage to him, because he retains any damage that you've done to him. So that was kind of my way of eventually getting through that fight, but it ended up being really slow. And I'm embarrassed to say this because I did not realize it until after this fight. If you have the materials in your inventory, you can actually replenish the arrows and certain throwable bomb things. You can just replenish them on the fly. You don't have to go back to a save point to replenish them every single time. And I did not realize that after all the hours I put into the game. It wasn't until probably like the last 4 to 5 hours that I realized I could do that. And so, I'm sitting here, I'm luring him over by the save point, and it's through a door, but he's really big, so he can't get through the door. And so he'll kind of hang out at the door, and I can shoot at him a bit, but then sometimes he'll wander off, and then I have to go back out and attack him some more. And, eventually I was able to take him down, which was pretty neat. But yeah, it was like, it was definitely surprising from that standpoint. Like, I knew he would eventually show up again, because it wasn't like with the one in Salt and Sanctuary where you only have the one opportunity to fight him and then that's it. But yeah, so I eventually was able to kill him, and then the other one shows up in a different area that's, I can't remember if it's right near a save point or not. I don't think it is, but it still had doors on either side of him that you could go out and then do a similar strategy, and I actually had an easier time with him with the other one than I did with this one. So yeah, there was that. But after I did that stuff, I decided that I wanted to go into the other area, which I initially I thought that, oh, it's the actual final area of the game, and it turns out that what it is when the game first got released on multiple platforms, they added a new area to the game. So basically, it's just like it was a free DLC area that they added, and I don't know, when this happened exactly, but the new area has, I think, 4 or 5 bosses added to it for that. No new mage hunts, but yeah, like 4 or 5 bosses added to it. And then there's like a challenge Coliseum thing where you can basically do boss rush with a bunch of the mages if you so desire, which I tried once and I got through like, I think maybe 2 or 3 bosses and 2 or 3 of the mages, and then I was like, and then I died and didn't really feel like going back to it, because it's just fighting bosses I've already beat. I wasn't that interested in it. But then I went off and explored the rest of the stuff and found the actual bosses that they had. And there's one boss that shows up. It's one that kind of feels like a cross between multiple Dark Souls bosses, particularly from Dark Souls 3. So it feels like it's a combination of the Twin Princes, the Lady Frida, I want to say her. I'm forgetting her actual name, but the nun chick with the scythe, and then she has her dad that has like the big jar, and he slams it down and stuff. And yeah, it's like a combination of those bosses and maybe like one other one. But what it is you have a big thing, monster thing, that looks like it's basically in a giant nun outfit, and then it carries around a big jar and slams it around, and then after you do enough damage, it drops the jar, and inside the jar is a monster that can heal the other boss, but also you have to kill that in order to be able to actually finish the fight, because you can't do enough damage otherwise to take out the other boss. But then the other boss gets all frantic and that sort of thing until it goes and picks up the jar again. So yeah, it's kind of like, it reminded me of a combination of all three of those different bosses, or two, or whatever I said. But it was an interesting one. That one thankfully only took me, I think, 2 or 3 tries to beat. But yeah, I did eventually beat that one. And then there was another one, another 2 boss combo. That one wasn't really a big deal. I think it only took me a couple tries. And there's a couple other miscellaneous ones. But the big thing was the final boss of that DLC. And frankly, he was the hardest boss I faced. Because for one, he is the only boss in Salt and Sanctuary, or Salt and Sacrifice, that has 2 proper phases. 2 full health bar phases. So it took me quite a while to even just get through this first phase. Then once I started getting through his first phase semi-consistently, and it wasn't even super consistent, then I wouldn't get through the second phase. And it was just a really frustrating boss fight. And I can't even tell you how many times it took me to finish that one, but I got so irritated with it. The biggest issue that it has is that, so of course he's very fast attacks and everything like that. But as you're dodging one of his attacks, he will charge forward with his sword, but then he leaves behind a trail of like air slashes that will suck you back towards him, and of course do a bunch of damage to you in the process. I cannot tell you how many times I died to those things, and it's like, if you're not far enough out of range of that attack that pulls you in, you're very likely to just die. And I very nearly just rage quit. Like I got to a point where I was so frustrated with this boss. And actually, well, initially what I was kind of thinking is, okay, this is technically supposed to be done after you finish the main game. But the problem with that, of course, is that when you face the final boss, which I'll get to in a little bit, but when you face the final boss, even though before you make your final decision, you can always, go back and everything. I mean, it's very similar to like Dark Souls 3 in that respect. So even though technically I could have, faced the final boss and then left the area, gone and done the DLC, and then gotten the ending, which there's 2 different endings. The problem was that I was already there, and so I just decided, okay, I'm gonna just try to see if I can finish this, and kept trying, got really frustrated, very nearly quit. I, took a longer lunch break that day, and when I say longer, like 2 minutes or something, but I had basically decided that I tried again after I got home, docked my Switch 2, played with the Pro Controller, which definitely helped a bit. And it was like, the first time I actually got surprisingly close to beating him, but still died. And then several more attempts later, I finally managed to beat him. And then it's like, okay, good. I'm done with all the DLC bosses. Now I can go back and finish the final area. And I want to say there was, I think 4 bosses, including the final boss. And then there was also a couple of the optional nameless mage hunts, which I did one of them. And the one that I did was, remember that boss I mentioned last week that he fires off like energy letters at you and then whacks you with his book.
Oh,
So I fought the nameless version of him, which was harder, but it was mostly harder because the arena that you get is a much smaller space, and you have a bunch of enemies right around him. And unfortunately, there's no, big sword guys to deal with him or anything like that, like there was with the one boss. And so, yeah, sometimes the enemies will do some damage to him, but there's not a whole lot of ability to do a lot of damage to him ahead of time. If it can get the ice attack off on him enough, that does stun lock him, and that helps a lot. But the problem is there's also a bunch of other enemies around, and because most of them are either right next to him to where sometimes the ice attack would home towards them instead of towards him, or they're on the other side of him to where I can't quite reach them, they're just, causing me problems. Like I'm trying to grapple to him and then hit him, and then, fire off the ice attack again, and then I'm getting hit by other enemies, and then I end up dying, and it was extremely annoying, but eventually I beat him. There was one other nameless mage hunt, but I didn't end up doing that one, and I ultimately just decided, you know what, these are not required, and since I'm playing on the Switch, there's no achievements associated with it, so as far as I'm concerned, screw it, I don't care. And then on top of that, there was also, I think, 2 optional boss fights that required a quest line, which unfortunately, if you missed meeting with those particular characters as you were going along, then you would miss your opportunity to fight them in the end. And I can't remember if I mentioned last week, but the one guy that I hadn't been sure about whether or not he would keep being able to, just give him the item and he would like help you in the end. No, I finished his quest line. That was the end of his quest line. Like, so there was that. But then when I got to the final boss actually was not too bad. He was much easier than the other guy for the DLC. The DLC guy was significantly harder, but the final boss, I mean, he still probably took me 5 or 6 tries, I want to say. I can't remember the exact number, but it really wasn't that bad. And even though, like most bosses, he'll have a second phase that's the second half of his health bar. He didn't have, a second health bar like the DLC boss did. So once I actually managed to, deal enough damage to be able to take him out, then that was the end of that. So that was definitely helpful. But yeah, and then unfortunately, this one does not have the option of copying saves or saving to different slots. And so I didn't have the ability to duplicate my save after finishing the boss fight so I could, check out both endings. So I just had to pick an ending. And then after I watched that, I just watched the second one on YouTube. And once you select the ending, then it, of course, takes you back to, it does automatic New Game Plus. So yeah, it was definitely, as an overall game, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, obviously I had my moments of frustration, lots of things that I disliked about it, but there was more that I liked about it than not. And ultimately, I'm really glad I played it. The one thing I have to say, though, is I'm not quite sure what I would do if I was going to play it again. Because I'm kind of in this weird spot where, like, I have Salt and Sanctuary that I played on Steam. But I also have the physical version on Switch. But then I also have Salt and Sacrifice, both the physical version on Switch and then the version on Steam, but I played it on Switch. So I'm not sure if it's more likely that I would replay Salt and Sanctuary on Switch, or, play it for the first time on Switch, but, it would be a replay of the game, or if it'd be more likely for me to start or play Salt and Sacrifice on Steam. Because either way, I would basically be starting fresh. I wouldn't be able to do New Game Plus unless I stuck to the same platform. So it's definitely one of those where I'm not really sure. I mean, like, I'm not playing anything either of those right now anyway. But between the two, like it's really just kind of trying to decide which I would rather do, because yes, I could technically play the game. You know, I could technically do either of those, or just, you know, do New Game Plus on the original platforms that I played them on. You know, it wouldn't be a problem either way, but it's definitely one of those things where I've been kind of going back and forth on what I would end up doing from that standpoint. So we shall see. What else was I going to say about that? I guess there's not really anything else to say except the fact that I did enjoy it, and I think it was worth playing. Regardless of my other complaints, overall I enjoyed it enough to where I would probably play it again someday, regardless of where I play it. I think in some ways it's probably a little more likely that I would just restart it on Steam and then you know, like do a different build for the sake of making it a little more interesting. And then if I, you know, really wanted to do New Game Plus with my Dex build, I could just do New Game Plus with my Dex build. But yeah. Let's see here. So with finishing Salt and Sacrifice, of course, you know, last week I had said that I was planning to primarily focus on Salt and Sacrifice and Black Flag, but I also knew that with the fact that I, you know, didn't have that I had an issue with internet access at the office, at least in terms of being able to access Steam and, you know, dealing with the DRM, I wanted to find something else that I could play that would be something I could work on, you know, at work when I'm on my lunch break, that I don't have to worry about DRM. And I talked about the possibility of doing Indiana Jones, but because of the fact that I barely started that game, I kind of wanted to do something instead that I had already put some time into, and, you know, work on my my backlog more. And so I was actually really motivated to finally jump back into Final Fantasy 13 2. And I ended up finishing it. I finished it yesterday. So let's see here. When I jumped back into 13 2 on Friday, I still did not really know where to go next. Initially, I was trying to just follow a guide for finding like the remaining fragments related to all of the different, all the different fragments that relate to the different timelines and the branches and timelines and everything else. And so initially, I was trying to, you know, just following a guide, trying to find some of those. But then I keep coming across ones that like I couldn't get to that particular fragment. I hadn't unlocked that particular timeline. And of course, I didn't really remember where I was in the story, which didn't help anything either. And so I spent a lot of time just kind of wandering around, trying to figure out where I needed to go. And there was like one optional boss fight that I wanted to try out, which was a way to get one of the paradox endings. And it's one of the early bosses that you can face. Normally what you're supposed to do is it's like this giant monster thing. And in order to fight him, I mean, like if you try to fight him head on right then and there, he has so much health, you barely can touch him. He's like impossible to kill. So normally what you have to do is you find a specific device within the ruins that was designed to weaken him. And so then that knocks his health down significantly and then you can beat him. The paradox ending, you basically reset that era so that you have the opportunity to retry that fight against him. I had tried doing it, and then I discovered, even with being higher level and everything compared to where I was when I originally faced him, it still was just impossible. And it turns out that you can't actually reasonably face him until after you've beaten the game, because then you get a specific ability that enables you to handle difficult challenges like that. And I don't know if there's any other really hard bosses like that in the game that you can only reasonably face after doing that. because I haven't come across them yet. But it was very much once I actually had the opportunity to face him for real. It was quite satisfying to be able to take him down. So going back to, how I got to the point where I actually was able to finish the game, I eventually figured out what it was that I needed to do in order to progress. Like that I had been basically more or less, I had started a main quest. And then once I figured out, I went back through a walkthrough and eventually I found something and it's like, okay, have I done this? I think so. Yep, I've done that. I remember facing that boss, and then I see a boss. I'm like, that one doesn't look familiar. And then I, go back a little bit further and see, okay, I need to get these fragments. And so then I go and follow that. I'm able to track down those fragments. And then I find out, okay, once you get these fragments, these specific fragments, you bring them back to this character, and then you can progress in the story. And so then once I figured that out, I was able to start making actual progress in the story and then just, move forward normally. I kept the guide handy because of the fact that I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss stuff in particular. And also I just didn't want to get lost again, because that's the major reason why I hadn't finished the game before, was just because I got lost. And so I was able to get that all sorted out. And I'm playing on easy. There weren't any fights that were like overly difficult initially. But then I got to the final boss, and it's like there's multiple phases, essentially. I mean, technically it's multiple bosses. There's like, I want to say 4 or 5 in a row. And I mean, the game, auto heals you in between each fight. So it's not really a big deal from that standpoint. But the problem was that I'd get to this last phase of the boss fight, and you're facing 3 Bahamut's. And, I guess that's technically kind of a spoiler, but I don't explain any context how you get to that point, so it is what it is. And so it's like there's 2 of them that are blocking the main one in the back, and you have to kill the 2 in order for the boss to be damageable, the main boss. And so I'm dealing with all of that, and I cannot do enough damage to the boss. And I realize looking back that there are some things I could have done differently strategy-wise that would have made it easier, but I didn't quite figure that out. And so what I was going to do was I just was like, okay, what I really need is I need the crystal points, which are what you need in order to increase your different stats and that sort of thing. It's going through the crystarium, which is like basically a chain of different abilities, a skill tree, basically. And I had, like my main character, Sarah, I had maxed out 3 of her different roles that she had available. But then my other main character, for some reason I'm forgetting his name, but I had maxed out, I had leveled up more of his different trees, giving him access to more different classes and abilities. But the problem is that none of them were above like level 50 something. And so I felt like that was probably a big part of the reason why I was having a hard time getting through this. And I did not want to take the time to grind it out. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to see if I can find a cheat trainer thing that will very simply just let me have a bunch of these crystal points so that I can go ahead and max out these roles and then just move forward, face the final boss, and finish the game. So I couldn't get the cheat tool to work on Steam Deck because it needed to install Microsoft.NET Framework. And then when I would install it, because you needed to install that. No, the cheat tool wasn't giving me the problems. It was the launcher that applies a patch to fix some things with it, and it also enables some mods that also enabled you to easily get 60 FPS and also not have the game have as many issues. But I also wanted to use the cheat tool thing. The cheat tool thing didn't work for me because it wasn't recognized in the game when I had it launched. And so I ended up just installing the game on my laptop instead, and then I was able to use the special tool that allowed me to apply mods, including the mod that makes it so that the game doesn't crash on Windows, and so that I can have 60 FPS the whole time, and high resolution and higher quality visuals and that sort of thing. It's basically just a big, massive improvement that doesn't happen natively with the PC version of the game because Square Enix just did a terrible job with the port and they never fixed it. Because this was back when they were just starting to do PC ports of their big console games back in 2014. And so I got all those things applied, was able to get the cheat tool up and running so I could get all the Crystarium points that I needed, which enabled me to max out all their rolls. And then I went into the final boss fight, and between that and just changing up my strategy a bit, I was able to finally beat the final boss. And then after I did that, I was looking into, okay, what do I have to do to get the secret ending? Because I knew that I needed to get all of the different timeline fragments in order to be able to do that. But that required a lot of things, including fighting that one big boss that normally you can't do damage to. And in looking into that, I had also found out, okay, there's also the DLC is also included that they had originally released for the game. And the DLC is basically something that you don't even have access to until after you finish the main game, which is understandable because it has major story spoilers. Sorry, my brain is blanking. So I was, looking into that, and I ended up going into that DLC, and I'll just say that, like, this isn't a spoiler or anything because it just isn't. But so the main game you don't play as Lightning other than in the prologue. You play as her in the prologue. You fight against, it's basically, the tutorial thing, and then you fight against the big bad of this game, and it kind of sets things up for the main game. The DLC, what it does is it lets you basically go back to a time that is in that same time frame where you played the prologue, and it's just you as Lightning fighting the main boss over and over and over, and you start off at like level 1, and then as you fight him, whether you win or lose, you gain points that enable you to level up, and then each time you level up, you gain new skills, and in some cases gain new roles as well. And you just have to fight him until you take him down, and then take him down quickly enough to where he gets his second phase, and then the second phase you have to actually complete that in order to complete this thing of the DLC. But if you do that, and then if you manage to get through the whole the fight with a 5-star rating, then you get Lightning as a monster that can be in your party. So then you just have a powerful commando character that you can have in your party. So it's like, it looks like you have Lightning in your party, and technically it's just a monster that looks like Lightning. So if the footage comes up here where it shows Lightning in my party, it's not actually Lightning, it's a monster that looks like Lightning. And something else I almost forgot to mention. So of course, the first time that I, beat the game, I beat it just, the cheating I had done was just giving myself a bunch of Crystarium points so that I didn't have to grind out all that stuff in order to get the rolls maxed out and all of that. And so, but when I finished the game, for some reason, I don't know if it was because I paused the cutscene. I don't remember skipping any of the cutscenes in the end, but it didn't pop the achievement for having completed the game. And so I ended up having to go back into that fight. But this time I did turn on a cheat that made it so that my attacks, it was basically an instant kill on the boss. And so I went ahead and did that just so that I could get all the way through the credits. I didn't pause it. I didn't skip anything. I just let it go through so that the achievement would pop at the end. And also because the only way to get Lightning as a monster in my party was to get that 5-star rating, I went ahead and I redid that boss fight in the DLC to with that same cheat on that made it so that it was basically one hit kill on each phase of the boss, and that gave me the 5-star rating so that I could get her added to my party. But yeah, so now that I've finished the main story and everything, I've gotten that DLC done. I haven't decided if I'm doing one of the... There's another DLC. Well, I think there's 2 other DLCs. One of them, I don't know if I need to do it in order to... I don't think I need to do it for any of the fragments, so I probably will skip it. The other one is a way that you can add another of the original characters from Final Fantasy 13 to your party as a monster. So I'm considering going through that, but it depends on whether I can do it in a very cheesy way, which I believe there is a way to do it in a very cheesy way. Because I don't really want to take the time to go through it because it involves doing mini games and stuff. So there might be an easy way to get through that. But I am working on getting all of the remaining fragments, which enabled me to get the secret ending. And I did already watch the secret ending on YouTube, but as I went through the rest of the stuff that I went through and realized some of the stuff was actually quite doable. And also just the simple fact that like the DLC with Lightning actually really sets up the connection between the ending of 13.2 and the third game, Lightning Returns. I just was kind of like, I'm not quite satisfied with how much I did. And now that I know that it's actually a lot more, I mean, it's actually possible now to get all of the remaining different split timelines and all the different fragments, even if it might take a bit more work, I just decided I was going to go ahead and do it. And so I am actually aiming to get all the achievements in the game. And I think that'll just be a good way for me to be more satisfied with having finished it, because it, you know, not getting all those different fragments and the different timelines and everything kind of felt like I was leaving the game incomplete anyway. And I really don't, it doesn't take much to get past the point of getting all the fragments to actually getting all the achievements. So I just decided I would go ahead and do that. But yeah, so as an overall game, I did enjoy it. It took me way longer to actually finish it than I planned, because, I mean, the original game I bought in 2014 when it first came to PC, and I started playing it right after I finished 13 on my original laptop that I still have. And I don't think it ran very well back then, but then I had put it down and I started playing the game again when I got my first desktop build, and I actually put a decent number of hours in, but then I couldn't, I mean, then I had put it down and I hadn't come back to it for years. And then when I tried coming back to it, like, my save was missing. And so I ended up just restarting the game once I got it functioning on Steam Deck. And then I played through a large chunk of the game in 2023. And then I had put it down, and because I had gotten lost, and then I had only tried to start it up a couple of times until very recently. And then, of course, last Friday, I finally figured out where I needed to go and was able to get through the game from there. Because I really was actually pretty close to the end of the game, but it was more just the fact that I didn't know where to go and was so stuck. And if I hadn't had that walkthrough, I don't know how quickly I would have ever figured it out, because I actually got to a point where I very nearly was about to quit this game. Like, I think it actually probably was Friday, you know, after I had spent some time working on stuff that I just was feeling like I have no idea where to go now. I am frustrated and I am tired of trying to figure this out, because I'm so lost. And once I figured out where I needed to go, then that kind of lit a fire under me and got me interested in trying again. And then, actually finishing it. So I do also have Lightning Returns installed on both my Steam Deck and my laptop. And I'll definitely make use on the laptop of the software that I need in order to get basically the game fixed so that it doesn't have any of the performance issues, and then has, does higher resolutions properly and all of that. I don't know if it has issues crashing or not. I know Steam Deck, it's supposed to be, I think it's 60 in all the indoor areas and battles, and then it's 30 in like the towns, which is not ideal, but if I can't get the fix to work on the Steam Deck, then I can live with that. And then I'll just, play on my laptop when I want to get the better performance. I may eventually move it to my desktop, but most likely I'll just do the laptop because it's like it's running as well as it's going to. I don't think there's any way to get it above 60 anyway. So, but yeah, because of the fact that I actually decided I'm going to finish out all the remaining achievements on 13.2, most likely it won't be. I would guess maybe by next week I'll have started Lightning Returns, but I'm not positive on that. So, but yeah, that's everything.
All right. Definitely glad you finished as many games as you did. Definitely great to hear. Jumping back, well, starting with Bloodshed. The game sounds very, very interesting the way you describe it. And I'm very interested. And you said you got one Switch, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, initially at least.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I was just okay. Yeah, I thought so, but I just want to make sure because I was concerned if it was another game that was like still in early access on Steam and stuff and whatnot. But since it's on there, I would take it then it's finished. That's great. The way you also describe the game reminds me of another game that's very similar. It probably is a bit different because while the other one, especially with the graphics, makes it sound like it really is inspired by boomer shooters like retro PC, FPS games like Quake and Doom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a game that's similar. I don't know if you've heard this one or not. It's called Vampire Hunters, and it is also a first-person shooter, vampire survivors like game.
Okay.
And I haven't played it yet, but I got the game in some Fanatical bundle a while ago, and the way you describe it sounds very similar to that one. So I thought I might put that on your radar, but I definitely will check out Bloodshed because unfortunately the survivor genre is very addicting to me, and I've played multiple ones. So I'll be interested in definitely checking that one out at some point. Because it definitely sounds good. And actually, because you said you got it on sale, I might go ahead and just get that for the backlog. So that way, whenever I want to play it, it'll be available. But yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, and I will say that it's not quite on the same level as Vampire Survivors or anything like that, where you have like a bunch of weapons all at once and you're constantly firing them. You can set it to auto fire, but it's much slower in terms of the firing than that. It's not like constant bullets coming out of you like in Vampire Survivors.
I guess then another question is it ammo based like, your traditional FPS, or
you have unlimited ammo, so
okay.
It's just that, you have to deal with a combination of things like cooldown and reload speed and that sort of thing. But obviously you can get perks as well to improve those.
Okay. And then Salt and Sacrifice. I'm very glad you finished that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it overall. It's definitely interesting hearing about your strategy for that one boss fight, with just luring him to the shop. And question, I know you said you faced him twice and whatnot, but if you beat him the first time, does he drop anything special that is sort of like...
No, because, well, I mean, if you beat him in the very beginning of the game, yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
But it's very difficult. Like I definitely lasted longer the first time I fought him than I did against whatever the name of the boss is from Salt and Sanctuary. But
Hmm.
when you face him in the other area, it's like he doesn't drop anything special. At least not the first time that you one of the two times he dropped nothing special. The second time I think he dropped something, but it wasn't anything like overly extraordinary because by that point in the game, I mean, I think I finished the game at like level 108 or something.
Hmm. Okay. Um, and with the let me make sure I got that right. Oh, and then with the one boss you were facing that had the enemies nearby, um, were those just like respawning enemies, or were those just like enemies that were a pain to like try to dispatch before facing the main boss?
They were just a pain to dispatch because you had just like a very small area, and the only way to get into the arena is either from above or from the left hand side. And once you get close enough to the arena, then of course the boss spawns up, and then it brings up the walls, and then you're stuck in that small area. And then trying to get to him from above, there's just a lot more enemies you have to deal with to get down to him, and it's more of a hassle than it's worth.
Hmm. Okay. And then I guess that's sort of two questions sort of combined into one. So overall, what would you say your experience with this game is compared with Salt and Sanctuary? And then, based upon your experience with both games, what would you, if a third Salt game was made, what would you like to see in it? Based upon your experiences with both games.
Well, I mean, I've said this before, and I stand by it. I still think Salt and Sanctuary was a better game. Um, but I do really like this one, and I feel like this one did the Metroidvania aspect better. More just because of the fact that there was more like abilities that were, um, or I guess it's more tools that you get that made it possible to access different areas that you couldn't otherwise access. Um, so I felt like from the Metroidvania standpoint, I think this one did it better. I think this one also did. I liked the mechanic of being able to have abilities attached to weapons to the same extent that you have in this one, where like you can hold down the right trigger or the left trigger, and then you press X or Y to use the different abilities that are attached to those. I mean, you have to have certain things unlocked in your skill tree in order to be able to actually use those abilities, and then you have to have the appropriate mana or whatever. But I think that's something that would be kind of cool to see in the next game. And it's possible that maybe it existed to some extent in Salt and Sanctuary, but I only played the one time and just as a strength build and had very limited spell casting abilities. I think the other thing I would probably like to see in the if they were to do a third one that I thought was nice was I liked the grappling hook. I thought that was really nice, very useful. I mean, it was very similar to Sekiro in that respect. But yeah, there was that, and there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, the fall damage. The fact that they made the fall damage much less punishing in this game was nice, because it was brutal in Salt and Sanctuary. But this one, it was not bad at all. It was a lot easier to deal with because, yeah, if you fell a really long distance, you were going to die, but you could fall a much further distance in this game without dying than you could in Salt and Sanctuary. But I definitely think that while there are those things, I think would be nice to bring back if they were to do a third game. Really, the third game I would want to be more like Salt and Sanctuary, because I thought that, especially just having a bunch of actual bosses and not just like a handful of bosses and then a whole bunch of the mage hunts, would be nice. And I don't like the mage hunts for the most part, mostly just because I don't want Monster Hunter like mechanics in a Souls game. I don't like having these monsters randomly spawn, at least not when you get to later parts of the game, and they get especially annoying because they're a lot stronger, or they just have really annoying area of effect attacks that can put a serious damper in you being able to complete stuff. Also, because I don't care about trying to, farm a particular type of mage just to get, whatever gear they have. I mean, on the one hand, it was kind of nice to have the mages because of the fact that there were times where it's like, okay, there's a lot of time in between, proper bosses, and so here are these stronger enemies that you can deal with, which, provide that extra challenge. But at the same time, I would prefer they just do more bosses, because, like, I can't remember exactly how many bosses there are in Salt and Sanctuary, but there were definitely a lot more. And I thought that the proper boss fights in this game were very good. It's just there weren't enough of them. So. But yeah.
Okay. All right, those are all my questions.
All right. Well, let's get into the news. And we have some good and bad news this week, but I think I want to start off with the potentially good news. And right now it's not a confirmed thing, but it's still pretty cool. And that is the fact that the director of the Persona games was asked about whether or not they would be doing remakes of Persona 1 and 2, given the fact that they've remade both 4 and 5. And they have said that he basically said that while there's nothing to announce at this point, they haven't started anything like that. He basically feels like they probably need to do it. So, I know you haven't played any of the Persona games, which I think we need to correct that next year. I think you need to play at least one of them. And my vote would be either 5 or 4 would be the best one to play. In fact, probably 5. I think that's a really good starting point, because it's like you could play the 4 remake and that's going to be really good for sure. But 5 is like, it's a great starting point because of the fact that you have it's really where the 3 and 4 remake got its inspiration. And then you can also see any of the quality of life stuff that happened with those remakes when you play them later. So, that all being said, what are your thoughts on this?
I think this is definitely good news. It's definitely something that I think could, I think it's good for multiple reasons. I mean, for one, these games haven't been, maybe possibly with the exception of, say, the PlayStation Store being able to play the original PlayStation PS1 versions. There's no way to play these games, and these games just haven't been touched by Atlus for years. Mm-hmm. So this would definitely be a great way to do it, and also get people to be introduced to how this series first started.
Yeah.
And I think for people who started, with 3 or 4, or maybe even just 5, because that was sort of like the most popular one that released so far. There might be a bit of a tonal shift going from, oh yeah, we got this colorful, teenage drama RPG, and then all of a sudden we're playing Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah. Sort of like that. So like there's gonna be that bit of shift, but it would still be cool to bring back, or to show like what the series first started out as and what it would be like to play that series. So I think it's definitely a good thing. Now I think how Atlus is going to handle that is going to be a question, because they kind of have their hands full right now, busy with Persona 3 remake, and then also Persona 6, which of course we've only just received a teaser trailer, so we don't know like how far into development they are with that. But, I feel like maybe after, the Persona 3 remake comes out. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm saying 3 and I mean 4. Whenever the Persona 4 remake comes out, maybe after that they'll have a team that could be working on one or the other. And also I'm wondering if, depending on the size of the games, if there will be something where they would just have a 1 and 2 remake, or if they would just say, or just have full dedicated remakes individually, which would allow them to put more focus into the games, but it also probably would extend the the time frame of the development and release as well. So there is that. So I mean, I'm for this. It's just a matter of when would they actually have the time and capabilities to work on these. That's the one thing. But if they do it, that's great, and I would be interested in checking those out.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously I'm very much in favor of this. Like I was really pleased with the remake of 3. I thought it was an excellent remake. And I still haven't finished the DLC, but I finished the main game and it was very good. Even though 3 is definitely my least favorite of the 3 recent Persona games, it still was a very good game, and the remake was very good, and really just pulled a lot of the quality of life stuff that 5 brought in, and all of that. And then of course the 4 remake, which I already loved 4 Golden, but 4 remake is looking like it's going to be absolutely stellar, and it's going to do similar things. Now 1 and 2, because they're such a different style, there is a lot. They can't make them the same as 3, 4, and 5. They just can't. The tone is too different. The style is too different. I don't think adding in social links, or because I don't think social links existed prior to 3. I don't think adding that in is something they should do. I think that but I think that there are ways that they can take the original games and simply modernize them, make them visually modern, for example. Instead of having the top down for most of the normal stuff and then the dungeon crawler first person thing for the rest of it, they could actually, have fully 3D stuff and everything like that. I mean, because like they did a really good job with like Shin Megami Tensei with 5 in particular, 4 to a lesser extent, because 4 had basically only had the third person wandering around when you were in dungeon areas. But like the original, I mean, Shin Megami Tensei 5 did a really good job with the student type sections actually having full 3D camera and everything like that. And even though it's not the primary focus, I still think that it's something that's helpful, and it just kind of brings more immersion. And I think that there are ways that they can make that happen. Now, of course, I would also be fine with them just doing remasters, but I think, like they said, realistically, they really need to remake them. And I want them to remake them, and even if they decided to add in social link stuff, like I would not be opposed to it. I just don't think it's needed, because I think it's better for them to stay as much true to the original spirit of those games as possible, and not try to dramatically change them too much. Because I thought that they did a great job with that with 3, because 3 was the darkest of the 3 recent Persona games. But it still had the social link stuff, because that started with 3. And it did it really well, even with the remake. It still felt very much like the original game. And so I think that there are ways that they can modernize it without having to completely change its identity. Now, how soon we would actually get something like that, I mean, that's hard to say, because for one, we don't even know where they're at with Persona 6. Presumably, they've been working on it for a long time. Presumably, it's actually really far along, but they just haven't revealed it because they did 4 Revival, and that one's coming out early next year. But depending on where they're at with Persona 6 would really make a difference in whether or not they are ready to start working on 1 and 2. I do think that more likely than not, they would have separate games. Now, my hope is that with 2, they would just combine the 2 parts of 2, because they had Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment were the 2 parts of Persona 2. I think it would be better if they just combined those. And I think that that's very doable, especially considering the fact that like Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance had 2 completely separate storylines. It's like basically you start off with one way, but you have a split. I want to say it was actually basically before you started the game that lets you choose between the original storyline and the Vengeance storyline. And so you have 2 lengthy, meaty games with different stories. And they were able to combine it into a single game, and it worked really well. Now, granted, I still haven't finished the Vengeance storyline. I need to get back to that. I do want to, because I did really enjoy the original game and what I played of Vengeance. But it's just a matter of getting back into it. So, yeah, I don't know if I really have any other thoughts on that front, but either way, I look forward to whenever they do it. It's just a question of whether I want to wait around for eventual remakes, or if I want to just go ahead and play the older games, just emulate them. Because it's like, yeah, I could get them through the PlayStation Store. At least, well, you can with the PS1 versions of those, but not the PSP versions. Or actually, I think the original Persona does have a PSP version available through PSN, but 2 only has the PS1 versions of those games. So, yeah. Either that, or I could just play them on my 3DS, because I do have those ports. It seemed like there was issues with being able to save, and so if I can't save, then there's no point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into our next topic, and I'll let you pick which one you want to talk about.
All right. So, the CEO of Take-Two has come out and had a statement about discs for GTA 6 and just in general. So, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick, he's came out and said a statement that discs don't really, and I quote, don't really make sense for the consumer during an investor Q&A. It's funny how these things happen during investor Q&As, not directly to the gamers. So during this Q&A session, he was addressing about the demand for discs, and he said our business is well over 90% digitally distributed. It's already a digital business. So in certain instances, especially if it's a big game, discs just, and no, I said discs, don't really make sense for the consumer. Although most instances you have to register online to play anyhow. Most instances you have to register to play anyhow. So if you're already connected, who cares if you download digitally? It's all the same, and it's much more convenient. So that's where the world is going in our opinion, and I think Sony understands that. We certainly understand that. It doesn't mean that we won't have physical editions now and then. I'm sure we will, in the same way that there's still vinyl in the recorded music business. But in other instances, it just won't make sense. And of course, he also was alluding to what happened with Sony and the outrage that they've been facing. That being said, and I certainly have quite a few thoughts on this, what do you have to say about this statement that was made?
Out of touch. It's like, yes, of course you don't think it makes sense because you're thinking about it from the standpoint of how much money you can make for your company. From the customer standpoint, it makes a whole lot of sense, especially because if the game exists on the discs in its 1.0 state, guess what? People don't have to connect to the internet to play those games. they can just play them off the disc. But if you don't have a disc and you require that they buy a digital version, they will never be able to play the 1.0 version. They will, at least short of downloading it and then going offline after that and then just, playing from there. But the fact that he's saying this stuff, it's just like, it's so obvious that he's talking entirely from a corporate perspective and not from a customer perspective. Because, well, yes, digital is more convenient. I won't argue with that. The reality is that there's no ownership from that standpoint. And we've seen time and time again, especially recently, that having a digital version of a game does not guarantee that you will be able to keep that version. And they can take away from you at any time, and they don't have to refund you for it. Now, I will say, just as a side note, because I saw this, that I guess Battlefield 6 has removed a bunch of content that people had previously purchased, and Steam is actually refunding people for even if they put a bunch of time into it. Like, I think it was on Cult of Mush, his channel. He does a bunch of deals and all that sort of stuff. But I think he pointed out someone had like 400 hours in the game and Steam was willing to refund them because Battlefield 6 just stole a bunch of content from them. It's like the game just came out last year and they've already taken away content that they had previously given. So big W for Steam being willing to do that. But yeah. And the guy had bought a bunch of DLC. He had spent over $100 on the game, put like 400 hours into it. And then a bunch of content got taken away. And so they refunded. But that being said, then we have other examples like of people who bought, I can't remember the name of the game, but there's a game that came out on Switch and you could buy either the $30 version of the game or a $60 version of the game. And it was a cloud only version. And it just got taken away. People who bought it, it's gone. They can't have it anymore. It's just gone. And so from the perspective of a Take-Two CEO, who probably has no idea what he's talking about anyway, apart from the money standpoint and, how it affects customers, the reality is this is not beneficial for customers at all, being stuck with only one option. And while I don't necessarily think that Rockstar is going to take away people's games, necessarily, theoretically, the fact of the matter is they give themselves that ability. When you buy everything digital, that's the position you're in, is that they can revoke those licenses. How many of them are going to? That's hard to say. Obviously, we've seen examples on Steam where we can buy games and then they'll get delisted, but we don't lose access to those games. We can still buy them. We can still, if we've already purchased the games, we still have the licenses. We can still download them. We can still play them. But for people who didn't purchase them, for people who would potentially want to purchase them in the future, they no longer have the option to. And so, at least on the Steam side, you still get to keep the games that you have, that you've already purchased so far. But then there's lots of other examples, obviously, of things just getting taken away. And I hate that this keeps happening. I hate the fact that they are intentionally stealing from customers. And this whole thing with Strauss Zelnick saying that, oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Our business is 90%. 90% of our game, or 90% of the games we sell, and I can't remember the exact wording that he used, but basically it was indicated that it was 90% digital, but he wasn't talking about specifically just game sales. At least I don't think he was. I think he was talking primarily about, even though he didn't say it outright, all the stuff that they sell through GTA Online, because that's where they make the vast majority of their money. Because yes, obviously GTA 5 in particular, plus plenty of other games they've sold, have sold a bunch of digital copies. physical copies, so on and so forth. But most of where they make their money is the online stuff with GTA. And, this has been a pattern we've seen regularly lately between PlayStation and Capcom and others saying, oh yeah, this large portion is all digital, but then they're counting PC sales in that, which, is only digital. And they're counting key cards as digital, even though technically they're physical. They're kind of both, but they really should count as physical because people bought them because they wanted a physical copy. Otherwise, they would have just bought it digital. But there's so much of this stuff where it's just extremely misleading. They're forcing people into this future that, while yes, lots of people are okay with it, most of the people that are okay with it, I think, quite frankly, just don't understand how badly this is going to affect them as customers. They have no idea how it's going to affect them. Now, I will say I have seen a pretty good, surprising amount of people on PlayStation who have decided to move over to PC. And, I'm not, this isn't me saying, oh, PC's the best and you should never be on console, but more so what PlayStation is doing in this particular situation, taking away physical games, forcing you into this single storefront, digital only, even though they're initially trying to do the codes in a box elsewhere, which I guarantee you are not going to last very long. The reality is that they are forcing this on, and seeing PlayStation guys move over to PC, whether full on moving over, because I've seen that in some cases, or even just adding it to the repertoire. I mean, I think it's great just to even add it, because it very much could end up being a situation like it was for me, because for a long time, I had Nintendo, PlayStation, PC. I had all three of those platforms. And it wasn't really until this last gen, starting with the PS5 gen, that I stopped buying PlayStation consoles. And it's just because I got so tired of all of the console nonsense when it came to having to pay for online stuff, including cloud saves, and having to deal with the fact that upgraded hardware does not mean improved performance and visuals and everything else. And because I realized how much better PC has been, it was a lot easier for me to move primarily to PC. Now, yes, of course, I still have a Switch and a Switch 2. Even though the Switch 2 is really just, I'm playing my backlog games for the most part, apart from, paying for some upgrades. And I still have my 3DS and Vita, both of which are modded, so that I can, take advantage of all that. But PC is my primary place, and it's great to see people on PlayStation willing to at least start the transition over, if not actually move over completely. One of the guys in the Married to the Games Discord that I talk to pretty regularly, he's a big trophy hunter. Like, he actually will go for the platinum trophy in just about every game he plays. I actually might be wrong about that. It might be only the games that he enjoys enough to go for, but he plays pretty much a lot of the brand new games. Like, he'll play them day one, and he can afford to do it, all that. But he said he just got through Facebook Marketplace a PC, and he's a Mac guy too. Like, he uses Macs for everything else, but he decided, price to performance, that he wanted to get into PC gaming, and he just put down an offer on a house, so he's gonna have more room and everything to have a proper setup. And he got like one, it has a 5080 in it, and 9800X 3D, and what else does he have? 32 gigs of DDR5. I can't remember what else, like 2 terabyte SSD. So it's a good PC. And I mean, like, what he paid for it is less than it would cost new. I mean, more than it would have cost before the RAM crisis, but definitely less than it would cost new, and still a really good price. And like I saw that and I'm super excited for him. I mean, he said he's not going to really get a chance to mess with it much until, after he gets moved into his house. But, um, like I know he cares a lot about frame rate and visuals and all of that. And although he likes his PS5 Pro, he's still been unsatisfied at times. And, I told him, of course, that whenever he gets to the point that he's ready to start doing stuff, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help in any way I can, because as far as I know, he's completely new to PC gaming. And, just having that additional thing for himself is really cool. Like I'm pretty sure he has all the platforms because he has PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo. And so he has all the options, but of course with the way prices are going up and all that, I mean, the nice thing for him, he wouldn't be able to play the PlayStation games on there, the new PlayStation games. So I'm sure he'll probably end up with a PS6 and that sort of thing. But for the games where he wants to have your better stuff, I mean, that build is going to be a beast. The CPU alone will make a massive difference over what he has with the PlayStation 5 Pro, because the 9800X3D is a very good CPU. Very, very good. It might even be better than mine. I honestly don't know, but it's a very good CPU, and the 5080 is nothing to shake a stick at. It's great. But yeah, so all that being said, I know I got like way off on a tangent there, but I do really appreciate the fact that we're seeing this shift from that standpoint, and I do really think that people like Strauss Zelnick just have absolutely no idea what customers actually care about. And, when you're out of touch, then you're just going to keep saying stupid stuff. And being a CEO, he knows how to run a company, knows how to make a lot of money. They're very successful, but still stupid. Anyway, that's all I have to say, because I'm going to stop ranting.
So it's interesting how he says that, discs don't really make sense for the customers. Okay, but how about this? $80 doesn't make sense to the customers. Yeah. Having the rest of the game be paywalled does not make sense to the customer. The point about having to register online to play the game, why do we need to register online? That doesn't make sense to me. And that's really the whole reason why I haven't really bought any Take-Two games, is because they don't, or because they require that registration. They require using the Rockstar launcher and stuff like that. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that, and so that's why I'm not buying your games. And so you are the ones like you said, they're the ones forcing people to be online. They're the ones forcing people to have this digital landscape, because we're not the ones who said, hey, you know what, I would just love to have another launcher for my games. I think it's just too convenient to launch Steam and just play my games right away. Would someone please just make another launcher for my games? Oh man, what am I gonna do? So he can say that it does make sense when there are a lot of things that don't make sense. Why should I have to spend $100 to get the full complete experience of GTA 6? That doesn't make sense. But not giving me the option to have a disc does make sense. And like you said, the thing, it's just insane that you can lose access to these games on console. It's insane. I mean, you shouldn't have to worry about it, but unfortunately you do. And I mean, this happens beyond console. In fact, I even saw recently this guy, he had bought the Lord of the Rings trilogy extended edition some time ago, and it was removed from his account, and he reached out to customer service, and they said there was nothing they could do for him, and he couldn't get a refund. And it's like, how did he lose access to his movies that he bought?
Yeah.
So it's the digital. I do agree, it is convenient in many ways, but at the same time, as long as many of these companies are freely able just to wipe stuff from your library without any input from you, that is a major problem. And it's just, especially if you're not getting refunds, like you said. I mean, if you spend any type of money, especially if you spend a lot of money, you should be able to not have to worry at all about that. And I think really just the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle with digital is just ownership, DRM. Like, that is the main issue with DRM, because if you could freely, download the games, not have to worry about any DRM, if you could back them up as you desire, then there's no problem, in my opinion, with digital at all. I mean, that's one of the big selling points of GOG, is the fact that they're yours to do with whatever you want. You want to go ahead and download, sure. You want to make 50 copies and back them and save them up to like 50 hard drives in case something happens, go right ahead. The sky's the limit. If you want to, download them and then just say, hey, I'm going to put this up on, my on like a server or something, so that way if I want to download it again somewhere else, I can do it, even though I could just download from GOG. But if you just want to do it, you can do it because you can do it, because GOG gives you full, complete, unrestricted access to those games. So if consoles had something like that, where you could go, hey, I want to download this game, I want to back it up to an external hard drive, so that way I can A, save up space, or B, years later just come back and say, all right, cool, I can just plug my PS5 to, or maybe Xbox to the hard drive and not have to worry about downloading the game and it taking a long time. Rather, just boom, I can just transfer it over and go right ahead and get started. So like, if you could do that, that's one thing. But if Sony or Rockstar or anyone else, or I guess EA in the case of Battlefield 6, can just go and say, hey, we're just going to wipe out everything you bought, you spent good money for, that's a problem. And I mean, there's what in most digital games, especially the ones that are online only, on console, if they decide to shut down the service or anything like that, then you're left with nothing, essentially. I mean, it can also happen on PC, but there are some workarounds for some games. Like, I can't remember I think it was The Crew. Even though the servers are shut down, fans made a dedicated server so you could actually still play the game, even though the official servers are gone. So you can have some workarounds on PC, but on console, you're at their mercy, essentially. So it really just is a frustrating when this guy has the nerve to say, hey, customers are fine with this, and it's completely fine, and it's convenient. It's like, okay, sure, it might be convenient, and I'm not gonna disagree, but you're adding a whole lot of strings to this. There are way too many strings that are attached here to make it, interesting enough where I want to say, okay, sure, I would like to spend money on that, especially if I'm going to spend full price on that. It's awful. So yeah, I mean, he's gonna get away with it. Take-Two's gonna get away with it because it's GTA 6 and people are just going to send money to them because, again, it's GTA 6. But it just shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Agreed. And just you mentioned the Lord of the Rings thing. I had to pull my extended edition Blu-rays in this fantastic, beautiful case with like the map, and the case is looking like the original like book things that the original DVDs extended editions did too. And we got this one day one when it came out, and it's glorious. It's so beautiful. I love it. All right.
Wait, are you saying that you didn't get that deleted from your physical library? They didn't come to swipe it out.
All right. Let's see here. So we're gonna go ahead and start closing out here. We were going to discuss some more topics, but we're probably just going to have to save them, or we'll see whether or not we get to talk about them next week. Just kind of depends on what, if anything, happens between now and then. But in the meantime, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right, so I've got a couple recommendations. My first one, and they're both power related, is going to be, if you have the option, and I'm only saying that because I've only had one battle so far. If you have the option, do a summon raid battle in the raid arena. So that way you don't have to worry about don't have to worry about any of your base being damaged. And also you don't have to worry about that at all. You don't have to worry about, any pals that might be under leveled that are working there just being wiped out. It's just a better option altogether, and it's simpler, and you don't have to worry about anything on that end. And then the next recommendation is going to be, if you do a summon battle, unless you just well, granted, you would also need to have a higher level to get that gear anyway. I recommend that your level is at least 10 levels above the raid boss, because again, I was level 55, 56. The boss was level 35, and I barely got through that boss fight within the 10-minute time frame. So yeah, definitely make sure you're just well prepared ahead of time, because the raid boss is not the same as your regular tower boss or the other PAL bosses you can find in the wild. These are definitely a whole lot more difficult and more powerful. So those are my recommendations.
All right. Well, my recommendation is, with Final Fantasy 13-2, definitely follow a guide, especially if you get lost, because it can be very easy to get lost, especially if you take a break for a while like I did. You may not have as much of an issue if you're just playing through all at once, but if you do get lost, having a guide will be very helpful. So there's that. My second recommendation is, when it comes to movies especially, but also with music, games whenever possible, buy physical, because that's something that they can't take away from you. I mean, short of them coming into your home and stealing it from you, they can't take it away from you. That's the reason why I have these shelves behind me of a bunch of movies on this side, as well as some games, and then a bunch of TV shows on the other side. I have all that stuff, and they haven't taken away any of it from me, because they can't. So I definitely highly recommend buying physical. And the other great thing about physical is that you're almost always going to get the best quality compared to digital. Sometimes there are exceptions to that, but I mean, this Lord of the Rings Blu-ray set, still so excellent, and just high quality. Now, I will say there are occasions where the physical set is a garbage design for the case. The 25th anniversary set for Back to the Future, I don't know what they were thinking, but the way that they set up putting in the discs is that they have like little tabs around the edges. So it's like you kind of have to force it to get it out. And it's not like you press the button in the middle like it is with most cases. You like press the button and you pull it out. No, it's like there's little tabs over the edges of the disc on the outside. And so it's like half the time I feel like I'm going to break the disc when I'm trying to pull it out. If it wasn't for the fact that the rest of the case is really nice, I would just replace it completely. But yeah. We don't watch those ones as much because of how annoying that case is. But anyway, that's it for my recommendations.
That's definitely a good recommendation there. I agree.
All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion, which sort of ties into my first recommendation, is do not have a summon raid at your main base. Like I said, if you do that, the boss will deal a bunch of damage. And in fact, back in the early access of Palworld, I saw people who did make that mistake, and their bases were just devastated because of the boss's attacks. So do not do that. Make a throwaway base. That's away from your main base and do the boss battle there. Like I said, if you have the option, just do it in the arena anyway. But definitely do not do it at your main base. Otherwise, you will be very sad with what happens afterward.
All right. Very good. Well, my dissuasion is in Final Fantasy 13-2, do not attempt to get all fragments for the different timelines before you beat the final boss, because some of them are not accessible and some of them are literally impossible, short of cheating. And I would imagine that probably some of those, if you used a cheat, you could potentially just, one-shot the really hard bosses. I mean, you probably could do that, but it might even be possible that they make it so that doesn't even work. I'd be curious. But yeah, that is what I have. All right, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I put out my video last week about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and how it turned out exactly how I predicted. So if you just like to enjoy a little snark around the bad practices of, customers being ripped off with DLC for content that should have been in the game, go right ahead and check that out. And then I also have my channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there yet, but there's still something in the works. And then one thing regarding my main channel. Next video, I was intending on doing a video based on a tweet I saw on one server that was shared about musicians for orchestras and stuff like that who are very disappointed and just upset with having to play video game music, and so I wanted to sort of have a discussion on that.
Interesting.
Just because I thought it was very interesting, but I really have to go back and try to see if I can find that tweet because it's no longer available and I don't know how to find it. So if I can find the original tweet, I will definitely make a video on that because it's very interesting, and I think there's a whole lot of nuance that can be said about it. But if I can find that tweet, then that'll be my next video.
That is bizarre. I can only guess it's probably like boomers and stuff that don't realize what video game music is like these days, and there's actually like really amazing music. Because I remember that, like, I can't remember who it was I was discussing with, but someone was like, basically they thought that video game music was like just beeps and boops and things that you had like from the original, like from Atari and the original NES and all that. And then when then I like played them some actual orchestral video game music, and like, wait, this is from a video game? It's like, it's not what it used to be. There's some incredible music, and even the artists that do the beeps and boops a lot of times will compose like really, really good music. There's some stuff that's like, this is super catchy. I love this. This is fantastic. But yeah, Anyway, I'm not going to rant about that. You can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. I haven't put out anything very recently, but I still have the downsides of PC gaming video that I put out, which is really just discussing from the perspective of someone who actually plays primarily on PC and Steam Deck, what the actual downsides are, rather than getting the console perspective where they don't actually have any idea what they're talking about, and then just going based off of the fear-mongering that they've been told forever. So mine is going over the actual downsides and explaining how PC gaming is still great despite those downsides. But then there is the YouTube and Rumble channels for the podcast. For the video version of the podcast, that goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. Then there's also the audio-only version of the podcast, which goes live on all major audio podcast platforms including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and others. And that goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, barring technical issues. If you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on any of the video versions of the podcast, and we'll be sure to read your comment on the show. If by any chance you have written a review on one of the audio podcast platforms, be sure to comment on one of the videos and just tell us that you've written one, because I have not sought them out. And the only review I know for sure we ever got was one from my nephew right around the time we first started. So that all being said, that's everything. All right. Last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, but I actually do want to point out that I had happened just to check before we got on to record, and we did get a comment on our last video.
Oh.
So this is from Joseph Rivera Santiago 0617, who said, "Should we jump off the ship now, or is it still hope?" I'm not entirely certain what that is referring to, but I guess it might be just the general state of gaming, perhaps. So
Yeah. Well, Joseph, I guess, without knowing the context of what you're talking about, if you're talking about, are you talking about PlayStation, or are you talking about gaming in general? Go ahead and let us know what you think. But thanks for the comment, and we'll be sure to, you comment back, we'll follow up and answer the question fully for you. In fact, we might even be able to discuss it as a main topic for next week. All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I Am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, remember that CEOs do not speak for you or me. Orange Box Podcast. Out.